The Velar Empire had conquered 47 worlds. They had destroyed civilizations that were old before their own sun was born. They feared nothing in the galaxy, nothing at all. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Shadow. He was tall for a Velar, with gray skin and 4 eyes that glowed soft blue in the dim light. His officers moved around him in silence. They knew better than to speak when the Admiral was thinking. On the screen before him was a small blue planet, Earth, and next to it the moon called Titan where the humans had built their colony. "The reports are confirmed," said his second officer, a young Velar named. "The humans have refused to surrender their mining operations. They say Titan belongs to them." Made a sound that was almost a laugh. Belongs to them. Nothing belongs to anyone until the Velar say so. He turned to look at the ancient data files on his personal screen. These files were very old. They came from civilizations that no longer existed. The Velar had found them floating in dead ships and buried in the ruins of empty worlds. Each file carried the same message. Each one was a warning. The first message was from a species called They had been powerful once. They had ruled over 100 star systems. Now they were gone. Their message was simple. "We found a species on a small blue world. They call themselves humans. Do not engage them. Do not fight them. Leave them alone." Read the next message. It came from the Pale Ones, a race that had disappeared 3,000 years ago. "We sent our warriors to take the human world. None returned. The humans do not surrender. They do not stop. Even when they are dying, they keep fighting. We lost everything. Do not make our mistake." There were more messages, dozens of them, all saying the same thing, all begging whoever found them to stay away from the humans. Watch the Admiral read these files. "Sir," he said carefully, "perhaps we should consider." "Consider what?" turned his 4 eyes toward his officer. "Consider that these weak, primitive creatures somehow destroyed entire empires. These warnings are lies. They are excuses made by failures." "But sir, so many different species." "We're all weak," closed the files with a wave of his hand. "The fell because they were soft. The Pale Ones died because they were foolish. We are Velar. We do not fail. We do not lose." He looked back at the screen showing Titan. The human colony was small, maybe 50,000 people living under domes of glass and metal. They had weapons, yes, but nothing compared to the Velar fleet. This would be easy. This would be quick. "Send the invasion force," commanded. 2,000 soldiers, take the colony. Kill anyone who resists." Hesitated for just a moment. He thought about the warnings. He thought about all those dead civilizations and their desperate messages. But he was Velar, and Velar followed orders. "Yes, Admiral." The troop ships launched from the Eternal Shadow and began their descent toward Titan. Inside them, 2,000 Velar soldiers prepared for battle. They checked their plasma rifles. They tested their armor. They talked about how easy this mission would be. "Humans," one soldier laughed. "I heard they break easily. Their bones are like glass." "They only have 2 eyes," said another. "How can they even see properly?" "This will be over before dinner," a third soldier added. "We will plant the Velar flag on their colony and be home within the day." None of them had read the warnings. None of them knew what was waiting for them on that frozen moon. On Titan, the alarms were already sounding. The colonists had seen the Velar ships in orbit. They had watched the troop carriers begin their descent. They knew what was coming. Most of the colonists were miners and scientists. They were not soldiers. They did not know how to fight a war, but they had been born human, and humans did not run. Captain stood in the command center of the colony. He was 32 years old, with short black hair and a scar across his chin from a mining accident. He had served in Earth's military for 8 years before coming to Titan. He never thought he would need those skills again. "How many ships?" he asked. 5 troop carriers, replied the colony's communications officer. She was young, barely 25 with quick hands and quicker eyes. Based on their size, we estimate 2,000 enemy soldiers. And how many fighters do we have? Was quiet for a moment, 31 including you. 31 against 2,000. Closed his eyes. The numbers were impossible. Any reasonable person would surrender. Any sane commander would open the gates and hope for mercy. But was human, and humans were not always reasonable. Get everyone who cannot fight into the deep tunnels, he said. Women, children, the elderly, pack them in and seal the doors. And the rest of us fight. Word spread through the colony. People said goodbye to their families. Parents hugged their children. Lovers held each other one last time. Then the fighters gathered in the main hall. Looked at them. 30 people plus himself. Some were former soldiers like him. Others were miners who had never held a weapon before today. Stood among them, a rifle in her hands that looked too big for her small frame. I will not lie to you, said. The odds are against us. We are few and they are many. We have basic weapons. They have plasma rifles and body armor. By every measure, we should lose. He paused and looked at each face. But they do not know us. They do not know what humans can do. They think we will break. They think we will fall. They are wrong. Outside, the Velar ships were landing. The ground shook with the weight of them. The enemy was here. We fight, said. We fight until we cannot stand. And then we fight some more because we are human, and humans do not stop. The 30 soldiers raised their weapons. Fear was in their eyes, but so was something else. Something the Velar had never seen before and would never understand. They were warned about humans. They did not listen. Now they would learn. The first Velar soldier stepped out of the transport ship and looked at the human colony. It was small, weak. The domes were made of simple glass and metal. The buildings were low and plain. There were no defensive walls, no gun towers, nothing that looked like a threat. Commander led the invasion force. He had fought in 12 campaigns and won them all. This mission felt like an insult. Why send 2,000 soldiers to take a colony of miners? It was like sending an army to crush an insect. Spread out, he ordered through his communication device. Surround the colony, block all exits. We take prisoners if they surrender, kill them if they resist. The Velar soldiers moved with perfect order. They formed lines and advanced toward the colony from all sides. Their armor was black and shiny. Their plasma rifles hummed with energy. They looked like death itself walking across the frozen ground of Titan. Inside the colony, watched them come on the security screens. They are surrounding us, said a former mining supervisor who now held a rifle. She was 40 years old with gray in her hair and steady hands. We cannot escape. We are not trying to escape, replied. We are trying to hold them here as long as possible. Why? Because every hour we hold them is an hour for Earth to send help. Every day we survive is a day that matters. The Velar reached the outer walls of the colony. Commander raised his hand and signaled for his troops to stop. He activated his voice amplifier and spoke. Humans of this colony, you are surrounded. Your position is hopeless. Surrender now and you will be treated fairly. Resist and you will die. You have 5 minutes to decide. Inside the command center, the message echoed through the speakers. The 30 human fighters looked at each other. Some of them were shaking. Some of them were praying. All of them were afraid. Picked up the communication device and replied. This is Captain of the Titan colony. We reject your terms. This moon belongs to humanity. You are the invaders here. Leave now or face the consequences. There was silence on the Velar side. Commander could not believe what he had just heard. 30 humans threatening 2,000 Velar soldiers. It had to be a joke. You have 30 soldiers, said. I have 2,000. What consequences could you possibly offer? Come and find out. The 5 minutes passed. The Velar began their attack. Plasma fire lit up the sky like a storm of green lightning. The Velar soldiers advanced in perfect formation, firing at the colony walls. Glass shattered. Metal melted. The outer buildings caught fire and collapsed. But the humans were not in those buildings. Had moved his fighters into the tunnels beneath the colony. These tunnels connected the mining shafts to the living areas. They were narrow and dark, perfect for defense. The Velar would have to come in small groups. Their numbers would mean nothing underground. "Wait for them," ordered through his radio. "Let them come to us." The first Velar soldiers entered the tunnels. They moved carefully, their eyes adjusting to the darkness. Their armor made soft clicking sounds as they walked. Was waiting for them. He was a young man of 28, a former soldier who had come to Titan looking for peace. Now peace was gone, and the soldier had returned. He lay flat on the ground behind a pile of mining equipment. His rifle was aimed at the tunnel entrance. He counted the enemies as they entered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. "Now," his voice said in his ear. Fired, the first Velar fell. Then the second. The other humans opened fire from their hiding spots. In the narrow tunnel, the Velar could not spread out. They could not use their numbers. They fell in groups. The survivors retreated, shouting in their strange language. Outside, Commander received the report. 15 soldiers dead in the first assault. He had lost more troops in 5 minutes than he had in his last 3 campaigns combined. "Send more soldiers," he ordered. "Flood the tunnels, kill them all." More Velar poured into the tunnels. The humans fell back, moving from position to position, firing as they went. Each corner became a battlefield. Each intersection was a trap. Had set up a medical station in one of the deeper chambers. She was not a trained doctor, but she had learned basic medicine during her training. It would have to be enough. The first wounded soldier was brought to her. His name was a young miner who had never fought before. He had a burn on his arm where plasma fire had grazed him. "It hurts," he said through clenched teeth. "I know," cleaned the wound and wrapped it with bandages. "Can you still hold a rifle?" Looked at his injured arm. It was shaking. The pain was terrible, but he thought about his family hiding in the deep tunnels. He thought about his daughter, only 4 years old, waiting for her father to protect her. "Yes," he said, "I can still fight." He picked up his rifle and went back to the battle. The fighting continued for hours. The Velar kept coming. The humans kept falling back, but they made the enemy pay for every step. By the end of the first day, the Velar had taken only half of the tunnel system. They had lost over 100 soldiers. The humans had lost 6. Commander stood outside the colony, looking at the smoke rising from the tunnel entrances. This was not going as planned. These creatures should have broken by now. They should have surrendered or died. Instead, they were fighting like nothing he had ever seen. "What are they?" one of his officers asked. Did not answer. He was beginning to understand why so many civilizations had warned against fighting humans. These creatures did not follow the rules of war. They did not give up when they were outnumbered. They did not stop when they were hurt. But was Velar. He would not retreat. He would not fail. "Bring up the heavy weapons," he ordered. "We will burn them out." Inside the tunnels received reports from his fighters. 6 dead, 8 wounded, but they were still holding. "How long can we last?" asked. "As long as we need to," replied. "Earth knows we are under attack. Help is coming. We just need to survive. And if help does not come in time." Looked at her with tired eyes. He had not slept in 20 hours. His hands were black with gunpowder and his throat was raw from shouting orders, but his voice was steady. "Then we make sure they remember us. We make sure that every Velar who survives this battle tells stories about what happened here. We make sure that the next time they think about attacking humans, they remember Titan." Nodded slowly. She understood. This was not just about survival anymore. This was about sending a message. Day 2 began with fire. The Velar used flame weapons to clear the upper tunnels. The humans retreated deeper, sealing passages behind them with explosives. Worked without rest, treating wounds and saving lives. Her hands were red with blood, but she did not stop. She could not stop. "You need to sleep," told her. "So do you," she replied. Neither of them slept. By the third day, the humans had been pushed into the deepest part of the tunnel system. They had lost 11 fighters. 19 remained. The Velar had lost 300 soldiers. Word was beginning to spread through the invasion force. Soldiers talked in whispers about the humans who would not die, about the creatures who kept fighting even when they were bleeding, even when they were broken. Some soldiers began to feel something they had never felt before. They began to feel afraid. Felt the plasma bolt hit his right arm before he heard the shot. There was a flash of green light, then heat, then nothing. He looked down and saw that his arm was gone below the elbow. For a moment he felt nothing. His mind could not understand what had happened. His arm was there a second ago. Now it was not. The wound was burned closed by the heat of the plasma, so there was little blood, but the arm was gone. "Is down," someone shouted. The Velar soldiers were advancing through the tunnel. There were dozens of them, stepping over the bodies of their fallen comrades. They saw on the ground and assumed he was finished. Reached for his rifle with his left hand. His body was shaking. The pain was coming now, a terrible wave of fire spreading from his shoulder through his entire body. He wanted to scream. He wanted to pass out. He wanted to die. But he did not. His left hand found the rifle. It felt strange holding it on the wrong side. His aim would be bad. His shots would be slow, but he could still fight. He raised the rifle and fired. The first Velar soldier fell with a look of complete shock on his gray face. He had seen the human lose his arm. He had watched him fall. How was he still fighting? How was this possible? Fired again and again. His aim was poor, but in the narrow tunnel he could not miss. More Velar fell. "Get him," Commander screamed through the communication channel. "Kill that human now." But the other human fighters had seen what was doing. They around him, providing covering fire as ran forward to drag him back. "You fool," she said as she pulled him behind a barricade. "You should have retreated." "Could not," replied, his voice weak. "They would have broken through." She looked at the stump of his arm. There was nothing she could do to fix it. The arm was gone forever, but she could stop the shock. She could keep him alive. "You need to rest," she said. Shook his head. "Give me something for the pain. I can still shoot left-handed." Stared at him. In her medical training, she had learned about shock and trauma. She had learned that when soldiers lost limbs, they needed to be taken off the battlefield. They needed rest and treatment and time to heal. But was not asking for rest. He was asking for pain medicine so he could return to the fight. "You are insane," she said. "I am human." She gave him the medicine. 15 minutes later, was back at the barricade, firing at the enemy with his remaining hand. The Velar soldiers watched in horror. They had seen many species fight. They had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never seen anything like this. These humans did not stop. They did not give up. They kept fighting even when they should be dead. On the fourth day, led a group of 5 fighters on a mission to recover supplies from an abandoned storage room. The Velar had cut off their main supply route, and the humans were running low on ammunition and medicine. They moved through the dark tunnels, stepping carefully to avoid making noise. Went first. She was the oldest fighter in the group, and she knew these tunnels better than anyone. She had worked in them for 15 years before the invasion. They found the storage room and began filling their bags with supplies. Ammunition, medical kits, food and water, everything they needed to keep fighting. Then the Velar found them. A patrol of 20 soldiers appeared at the tunnel entrance. Plasma fire filled the narrow space. One of his team fell immediately, then another. "Run," shouted. "Get the supplies back." The 3 surviving fighters grabbed the bags and ran, stayed behind to cover their retreat. She fired at the Velar, forcing them to take cover. A plasma bolt hit her in the back. She felt something break inside her spine maybe, or something worse. Her legs stopped working and she fell to the ground. But her arms still worked, she could still shoot. She rolled onto her back and kept firing. The Velar had to stop their advance. They could not push past this one woman who refused to die. "Why won't you stop?" one soldier screamed in frustration. Did not answer. She did not have breath to waste on words. She just kept shooting. The 3 fighters made it back to the main camp with the supplies. They told what had happened. He organized a rescue team immediately. They found 20 minutes later. She was still alive, still shooting at the Velar from her position on the ground. Her rifle was almost out of ammunition. Her face was pale from blood loss, but she was smiling. "Took you long enough," she said when she saw. They carried her back to the medical station, examined her and found that her spine was damaged. She would never walk again. "I am sorry," said. Shook her head. "Do not be sorry. I saved my team. I did my duty. Now prop me up against that wall and give me a rifle. I can still aim." Looked at her with something like wonder in his eyes. This woman had lost the use of her legs. She should be crying. She should be grieving. Instead, she was asking for a weapon. "Are all humans like this?" one of the younger fighters asked. "No," replied. "Most humans are soft. Most humans live easy lives and never face real danger. But when danger comes, when there is no choice but to fight or die, this is what we become. This is what we have always been." The Velar soldiers were beginning to crack. On the 5th day, 3 of them tried to desert. They were caught by their officers and executed as a warning to the others. But the message was clear. The invasion force was losing its will to fight. Commander could not understand it. He had more soldiers. He had better weapons. He had every advantage. But his troops were dying by the hundreds and the humans just kept fighting. He walked through the camp and saw his soldiers sitting in groups, talking quietly. Their eyes were empty. Their spirits were broken. They looked at the tunnel entrances with fear. "What are they saying?" he asked his officer. "They are saying that we should not have come here. They are saying that the warnings were true. They are saying—" The officer paused. "Saying what?" "They are saying that humans are not a species. They are a curse. A curse that will destroy anyone foolish enough to attack them." Wanted to scream. He wanted to execute every soldier who spoke such nonsense, but he knew it would not help. The fear had spread too deep. Inside the tunnels, the humans counted their losses. 15 dead, 14 remaining, but they had killed over 400 Velar soldiers. "We are winning," said. He was sitting against a wall, his bandaged stump resting on his lap. "I never thought I would say that, but we are actually winning." "We are surviving," corrected. "There is a difference. They still have 1,500 soldiers. We have 14 fighters, most of us wounded." "But they are afraid now," said from her position against the wall. "I saw it in their eyes when they came for me. They expected me to die. When I did not, when I kept fighting, they looked at me like I was a monster." "To them, we are monsters," said quietly. She had not slept in 3 days. Her eyes were red and her hands were shaking. But she kept working, treating wounds and saving lives. Looked at his team. They were broken and bleeding. They were exhausted and afraid. But none of them had asked to surrender. None of them had suggested giving up. "One more day," he said. "Earth's fleet should be close now. We just need to hold for one more day." No one argued. No one complained. They just picked up their weapons and prepared for the next assault. The 6th day dawned and the Velar attacked again. But this time, something was different. The soldiers moved slowly. They hesitated before entering the tunnels. They fired wildly and retreated at the first sign of resistance. They were not fighting to win anymore. They were fighting to survive. The humans pushed back. For the first time since the invasion began, they went on the offensive, led a team of 8 fighters into the upper tunnels and reclaimed 2 sections that had been lost days ago. The Velar fell back, and back, and back again. By the end of the 6th day, the humans had lost 2 more fighters, but the Velar had lost another 200 soldiers. And in the distance, moving through the darkness of space, Earth's fleet was coming. They were too late to prevent the invasion, but they were just in time to see something incredible. They were just in time to see humans refuse to die. Admiral received the report on the 7th day of the battle. He read it 3 times because he could not believe what he was seeing. 467 soldiers dead, 112 more too wounded to fight. The human colony still stood. The humans were still fighting. This was impossible. This could not be real. "Get me Commander," he ordered. The communication screen flickered and his face appeared. The commander looked different than he had a week ago. His gray skin was pale. His 4 eyes were dull and tired. He looked like a creature who had seen something that broke his understanding of the universe. Admiral said, "I was going to contact you. Explain this report. How have you lost nearly 500 soldiers to a group of 30 humans?" Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was strange. It was the voice of someone who had stopped believing in their own strength. "They do not stop, Admiral. We shoot them and they keep coming. We blow off their limbs and they keep fighting. We push them into corners and they push back. I have never seen anything like this. No one has ever seen anything like this." "They are flesh and blood," snapped. "They die like any other species." "Yes, they die, but they do not stop before they die. That is the difference. Every other species we have conquered, they reach a point where they give up. They surrender. They accept defeat. The humans do not have that point. There is no level of pain or loss that makes them stop." Felt something cold move through his body. It was not fear, he told himself. The admiral of the Velar fleet did not feel fear, but it was something close. "I will send reinforcements," he said. "The soldiers do not want to fight anymore, Admiral." "What?" "I have had 37 desertions in the last 2 days. Soldiers are refusing orders. They would rather face execution than enter those tunnels again." Paused. "They are telling stories about the humans. They say they are demons, creatures from the dark spaces between stars. They say we were fools to come here." "This is nonsense. They are just animals, primitive, stupid animals." "Primitive animals do not fight like this, Admiral. Stupid animals surrender when they are beaten. These creatures are neither primitive nor stupid. They are something else, something we do not have a word for." Ended the communication. He sat in his chair and stared at the screen showing Titan. Such a small moon, such a small colony. How could it cause so much trouble? He called for his generals. They arrived within the hour, filing into the meeting room with serious faces. They had read the reports too. They knew what was happening on Titan. "We need to send more troops," said. 10,000 soldiers, enough to crush them completely. The generals looked at each other. None of them spoke. "Well," demanded, "what are you waiting for?" General was the oldest of them. He had served the Velar Empire for 50 years. He had seen many battles and many victories, but he had also studied history. He had read the warnings. "Admiral," he said slowly, "with respect, I do not think more troops will help." "Explain." "The warnings we received, the messages from dead civilizations, they all said the same thing. It does not matter how many soldiers you send against humans. They do not stop. They do not surrender. And every soldier you send is another soldier who comes back broken and afraid. So what do you suggest? That we retreat? That the mighty Velar Empire runs from a group of miners? I suggest that we learn from the mistakes of others. They sent their armies against humans. They lost. The Pale Ones sent their fleets against humans. They are gone now. Every species that has tried to conquer humanity has been destroyed. Those species were weak. Were they? Leaned forward. The ruled 100 star systems. The pale ones had technology we still do not understand. They were not weak, Admiral. They were beaten by something they did not expect, something they could not prepare for. And what is that? Thought about how to explain it. He thought about all the reports he had read, all the stories he had heard. Humans have a quality that no other species possesses, he said finally. When they are hurt, they get angry. When they are pushed down, they get back up. When they are told something is impossible, they do it anyway. Other species fight to survive. Humans fight to win. There is no price too high for them, no sacrifice too great. They will burn their own worlds before they let an enemy take them. Was silent. He did not want to believe these words, but he had seen the reports. He had seen what 12 humans had done to 500 Velar soldiers. What do you recommend? He asked quietly. We leave. We go home. We tell the Empire that this moon is not worth the cost, and we pray that the humans do not follow us. The other generals nodded. They had all reached the same conclusion. The battle for Titan was over. The Velar had lost. But could not accept it. His pride would not allow it. He had conquered 47 worlds. He had never retreated. He would not let a group of bleeding humans be his first defeat. No, he said, we continue the attack, send the reinforcements. The generals looked at each other again. Something passed between them, a decision made without words. We cannot do that, Admiral said. What? The troops will not go. The generals will not order them. We have discussed this among ourselves. The invasion of Titan is over. Stood so fast his chair fell backward. This is mutiny. This is survival, replied calmly. You may execute us if you wish, but our soldiers will not fight humans anymore. They would rather die by Velar hands than human ones. At least that would be quick. The Admiral looked at his generals. These were Velar warriors, the best soldiers in the galaxy. They had faced death 1,000 times without flinching, and now they were telling him they were afraid. Not of dying, but of fighting humans. They were warned, said softly. All those ancient civilizations they tried to tell us, we should have listened. On Titan, the humans noticed the change immediately. The attack stopped. The Velar soldiers pulled back from the tunnel entrances. The guns went quiet. What is happening? Asked. Looked at the security screens. He could see the Velar forces retreating to their ships. Soldiers were running, not marching. Officers were shouting orders that no one followed. I think they are leaving, he said. Leaving, but they still have over 1,000 soldiers. We have 12 fighters left. The numbers do not matter anymore, smiled for the first time in a week. We broke them, not their bodies, their spirits. They do not want to fight us anymore. Laughed from her position against the wall. It was a strange sound, coming from a woman who would never walk again, but it was a sound of victory. We won, she said. 12 bleeding humans against the mighty Velar Empire, and we won. Raised his remaining arm in celebration. Sat down on the ground and started crying, all the tension of the past week finally releasing. The other fighters hugged each other and cheered. They had survived. Against all odds, against every expectation, they had survived. And up in orbit, Admiral watched his invasion force board their ships and flee. He watched his empire's greatest defeat unfold in real time. The humans had sent a message, not with words but with blood and determination. The message was simple: we do not stop. And the galaxy would never forget it. The Earth fleet arrived 3 hours after the Velar began their retreat. 12 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel and found themselves in the middle of a scene they did not expect. Admiral stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Rising Sun, and stared at the tactical display. Velar troop carriers were fleeing toward the edge of the system. The enemy flagship was moving away at full speed. No one was fighting. "What happened here?" she asked. Her communications officer shook his head. "Unknown, Admiral. The colony is not responding to our calls, but the Velar fleet is definitely in full retreat." "In retreat? They have more ships than we do. Why would they run?" No one had an answer. Admiral ordered the fleet to take up defensive positions around Titan and sent a landing team to investigate the colony. The landing team found the main entrance blocked by debris and bodies, Velar bodies, hundreds of them piled up in the tunnels like fallen leaves. The smell was terrible. The sight was worse. Sergeant Bora led the team deeper into the colony. She was a veteran of 3 campaigns and she had seen battlefields before, but nothing like this. Nothing this brutal or desperate. "Over here," one of her soldiers called out. They found the survivors in the deepest part of the tunnel system, 12 humans huddled together in a small chamber. Most of them were wounded. Some of them could barely stand, but they were alive. Looked up when the landing team entered. For a moment he did not believe what he was seeing. Earth soldiers, real Earth soldiers, not enemies, not threats, friends. "You came," he said. His voice was rough from days without proper water. "We came as fast as we could," Sergeant Bora replied. She looked at the small group of survivors, at their wounds and bandages and exhausted faces. "What happened here? How did you hold against 2,000 Velar soldiers?" Thought about the question. How could he explain what had happened? How could he describe the fear and the pain and the determination? How could he put into words what it meant to keep fighting when everything said you should stop? "We are human," he said finally. "That is what happened." The survivors were taken to the medical ships in orbit. Doctors treated their wounds and stabilized the most serious cases. Finally slept for the first time in a week. Was fitted with plans for a mechanical arm. Began learning to use a special chair that would let her move again. But before she left Titan, Admiral came to see them. She wanted to understand what had happened in those tunnels. She wanted to hear the story from those who had lived it. Told her everything, the arrival of the Velar, the impossible odds, the decision to fight instead of surrender, the 6 days of battle in the darkness, the moment when the enemy finally broke. When he finished, Admiral was quiet for a long time. 31 people against 2,000, she said. You lost 19. They lost over 500. You should have been destroyed in the first hour. We should have, agreed, but we decided not to be. Decided. Yes, that is the thing about humans, Admiral. We can decide. We can choose to keep going when our bodies tell us to stop. We can choose to fight when our minds tell us we have already lost. We can choose to stand up when everything in the universe is pushing us down. Admiral nodded slowly. She understood now. The Velar had more soldiers, more weapons, more technology, but they did not have choice. They fought until the numbers said they should stop. Humans fought until they decided to stop. And these humans had decided not to stop at all. The news spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Every species with access to communication networks heard the story of Titan. 31 humans against 2,000 Velar soldiers. The invaders beaten and fleeing. The colony still standing. Other empires watched and listened. Some of them had been planning to expand into human space. Some of them had been preparing invasion fleets and conquest strategies. Now they reconsidered. If 30 humans could break an army, what could 30 million do? What could 3 billion do? The Velar were not weak. Their soldiers were trained and equipped with the best weapons in the known galaxy, and they had been defeated by miners and scientists with basic rifles. The warnings that had been ignored for so long were suddenly remembered. The messages from dead civilizations were read with new eyes. Every species that had tried to conquer humans was gone now. Every fleet that had attacked Earth had been destroyed. The pattern was clear. Humans could be killed, but they could not be defeated. On Earth, the survivors of Titan became heroes. Their names were taught in schools. Their faces appeared on monuments. Children played games where they pretended to be or fighting imaginary Velar in imaginary tunnels. But the survivors themselves did not feel like heroes. They felt tired. They felt broken. They felt grateful to be alive. Returned to Earth and found that he could not sleep without nightmares. He saw the faces of those who had died. He heard their voices calling for help. He woke up screaming their names. But he also found healing. He found it in the quiet moments with old friends. He found it in the sunrise over his family's home. He found it in the knowledge that his sacrifice had meant something. Became a doctor, a real doctor with training and degrees in a hospital that was not a hole in the ground. She saved lives every day, and each life she saved was another victory against the darkness. Got his mechanical arm. He learned to use it almost as well as his original, sometimes better. He became a teacher at a military academy, training new soldiers in the art of never giving up. Never walked again, but she wrote a book about the Battle of Titan. She described what it felt like to be paralyzed and still pick up a rifle. She explained the strange mathematics of human determination, where 30 could defeat 2,000. The book was translated into 100 languages. It was read on 100 worlds. Years passed. The Velar Empire declined. Their soldiers had lost the will to fight. Their generals had lost the confidence to command. They had touched something they did not understand, and it had broken them. Other empires rose and fell, but none of them approached human space. None of them sent fleets against Earth. The lesson of Titan had been learned. One day, many years after the battle, received a message. It was from a Velar named, the young officer who had been on the bridge of the Eternal Shadow when the invasion was ordered. "I was there when Admiral decided to attack your colony," the message said. "I read the warnings, I knew what they said, but I did not believe them. I thought humans were just another species, just another conquest. I was wrong. Now I am old, my empire is dying, the species that we conquered are free, and humans rule the galaxy, not through war but through the fear of war. No one wants to fight you, no one dares. I write this message to tell you something I wish I had understood long ago. You were never just another species. You were never just another conquest. You are the species that does not stop. You are the species that keeps going. You are the warning that we should have heard. We were told about humans, we did not listen. Now we are gone." Read the message 3 times. Then he walked outside and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Velar were fatting away. Somewhere out there, other empires were learning the lesson of Titan. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was changing because of what 31 people had done on a frozen moon. They had not planned to change history. They had just wanted to survive. But in surviving, they had proved something that the universe would never forget. Humans do not stop. Humans keep advancing, even while bleeding, even while dying, even when the numbers say it is impossible. They keep going. And that is why they win. That is why they will always win.